Hi. Today I want to talk about the lunar total eclipse that is occurring on Thursday, March 13th, 2025 at 11:54 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So this could be the 14th on the East Coast, or it will be the 14th on the East Coast. So check your times, but you will know that the lunar eclipse will be happening at 23 degrees and 56 minutes of Virgo, with the sun being in the same degrees in Pisces. So, in talking about lunar eclipses and talking about eclipses in general, we talk about great endings and great beginnings, right? These are fated times where things can happen out of the blue that kind of set you in a different trajectory in your life. Life changing events can really happen here. The eclipses happen when the moon and the sun get to the nodal point, and they have to be within a degree range of the nodes in order for these eclipses to happen. We need to remember that the nodes are kind of imaginary, not really imaginary, but mathematical points about the ecliptic and the sun, right? So that's about the nodes. The nodes are pointing us forward into the future and also talking about our past and past habits and behaviors, even past lives, depending on the kind of route of astrology that you want to go into. Places that we were very comfortable and we feel far more comfortable versus the North Node being a place of like kind of the great unknown. We are in the nodes being in North Node Pisces, talking about the visions for the future, our dreams, the collective wonderment and culmination of kind of all of the data, right? This is kind of the end of a cycle, or the beginning, actually, as the nodes do go backwards. Whereas the South Node in Virgo is definitely about probably releasing some guilt. Um, this is the axis of service and sacrifice. This can be, yeah, definitely things about guilt, things about health, um, things about over processing intellectually versus processing emotionally and intuitively. Pisces being more about the intuition, and Virgo being more about the analysis, right? The brain's kind of analysis and thinking. So it's trying to say maybe we overthought here and now we need to get into the spiritual realm, right? We have during this eclipse, we have Neptune is with the North Node. It's very, very strong. It's just now separating. But that Neptune is at its anaretic 29th degree. This is the end of Neptune's long 164-year cycle before we go into Neptune and Aries. Neptune and Aries will be ingressing at the end of this month, just for a few months, and then it'll come back into this Pisces place, right? So there's a lot of Piscean energy that's happening right now, even though the moon in Virgo is what's making it a lunar eclipse in Virgo. So when the moon is eclipsed, right, its light goes out. So what we're seeing in the night sky is the sun eclipsing the moon. The moon is kind of getting and going into that south node to be kind of swallowed by the tail of the dragon, to kind of go and learn a new way of being before it goes out once it passes the south node. There is the Sun Saturn conjunction that is a huge feature of this eclipse. And I think that there's something to do with restriction, a new phase of restriction, a new phase of spiritual mastery. There could be some stuff around definitely religion, I think. Um, there is something about boundaries and borders. This could be about foreign policy with that Pisces kind of thing going on with it. And the moon is in the 28th mansion, which is a culmination, right? This is the last mansion of the moon. So there's really like this pregnancy here, this last eclipse here before we are thrust into new territory, before the sun eventually will enter the first mansion and start its journey all over again. And the moon is in the 14th mansion of separation. So there is a cutting here, right? A separation. So lunar things are being separated here. The moon in Virgo having to do with literally separating the wheat from the chaff. There could be something about farming here. I know that there's some stuff in the news about how new policies are impacting our farm workers. That'll be kind of interesting to think about. We also have the Saturn and Mars are still in their kind of very wide trine, but it's still operational. It's still working. And it won't exact until April 4th. So this will be the third trine, the final trine of in these signs. So there's something here about how things are kind of getting very quickly and crazily cut away. uh, and having this be a full moon, right? This is a culmination point. This is a realization point. This is a time where things literally come to light. Earlier in the morning, before the moon hit this node, right, it did a square with Jupiter. So I think it's coming into this lunation with a lot of information to be processing and considering. And we need to remember too that those two planets, the moon and Jupiter, are ruled by Mars and Aries. Mercury in Aries, which during this eclipse is stationed to go retrograde. So there is a very potent Mercury that is thinking about Martian topics, Mars being out of bounds around how we protect ourselves, how do we maintain our status quo emotionally, how do we fight for what we emotionally are feeling, not necessarily believing but feeling. That is very pregnant with this Mercury being stationed. I can tell that Mercury is in Aries because I often find myself thinking a little bit too, or speaking a little bit too quickly. And then I have to kind of go back over, which is very indicative of Mercury having to go back, remember what it said before, and then go forward again. So Mercury is stationed. He goes retrograde just the next day. So this is extremely potent. And so it's very important for us to know that the things that kind of come up now, I think we're going to be processing during this retrograde period. Saturn and Venus are in contra Anticia. So and full moons are often about relationships, right? The first, seventh axis. So Venus and Saturn being in contra Anticia can really speak to the endings of relationships and partnerships and certain values that we held before. All of these kind of Venusian topics, there is a separation. Saturn can also talk about separation. The opposition is about a separation as well. It's interesting to me that either from modern perspective, we have Neptune being in play with this lunation, being the modern ruler of Saturn and the Sun in Pisces. But we also, if we need to consider the traditional ruler as well, we have Jupiter in Gemini, not in great condition. He's in his detriment. He is pregnant with lots of ideas. And he would be really he's speaking to a lot of the information and data and thoughts that we've had when trying to go forward. But we need to do some separation. We need to do some separating the wheat from the chaff, and figuring out ultimately what's right and getting a little bit better about being in discernment instead of just collecting all of this data. Pluto is at the degree that he is going to go retrograde in. So there's also something here about what we are all collectively experiencing as a society and also in the world around our structures and laws, that we're going to have to revisit as Pluto goes retrograde in just a while. I believe, did I write that down? He will retrograde in May and then go forward again. So he's inside of the degree that I think is pretty pregnant with information and data for us. So let's see if there's anything else I want to mention about this. I think that there's going to be a lot of strife and quarrels. I looked at the stars. We have Mercury conjunct Alganib. This is a quarrelsome star. Success through fair fighting. So there is something about really trying to be fair instead of speaking too fast. If you speak too fast and you don't fight fair, this is going to be an issue. We also have, let's see, yeah, pardon. Chiron and Mars are within that 3-ish degree range of a square. So there's just a sort of like pain aspect, a wounding aspect around trying to protect ourselves, protect our identities. Sorry about that. Yeah, so Saturn is in Paran with Capella, Parentella, which is the stars and how they are having conversations with the various planets. And Capella is about freedom loving. And so there is something about the sun being, Saturn, pardon, being under the beams of the sun that is kind of being swallowed up. So it's like our freedom loving ways kind of being restricted in order to serve the sun's agenda of whatever its vision is, whether it is right or wrong, because it's answering to the Jupiter in Gemini. So are we going to be experiencing new restrictive laws and social norms in order to serve the sun? And we have the sun is in Parentella with Elnath, the star Elnath. It was just culminating. And there's an aggression. There is activism and agitation. And if we consider the moon to be the people, we are pissed. We have done some analysis about the things that are happening right now. And this isn't great. It doesn't feel good. But we are being restricted in some sort of way, with the sun literally eclipsing the moon and the moon being in that opposition to Saturn. Neptune is conjunct Sheet, so there could be more news around flooding and water news. And the moon is also conjunct the star Alkes, which is Alkes brings success to farmers and gives confidence and faith to the future. However, the moon is being eclipsed. So is this the people feeling down and out about their luck for the future? Is this news about farmers being harmed in some sort of way about this vision going forward? These are things to look back upon, right? I'll probably watch this in the past, like after the eclipses, and be like, oh, okay, yes, I was right. Yes, I was wrong. That's a very Virgo moon and Virgo thing, is like, now I need to determine what was right and wrong so I can be more perfect in the future. Yeah. So all that to say, this eclipse, I think, feels very heavy and very pregnant. This is very much an eclipse that is pushing us into the future, with Neptune being at that anaretic 29th degree, going into a new 164-year cycle coming up, starting in the end of March. This is the first of 2 eclipses this month. We have another one happening March 29th. Now, if you have points in your chart that are at that 23.5 degrees, right? Anywhere from, really like 21 to 26, 27, let's even say 20 to 27 of the mutables. So we have Gemini, Virgo, Sag, and Pisces. You are in play for this eclipse. If you have the sun or the moon activated by perfection, this is an eclipse that is likely for you. And so I think it is very key and important for us to kind of get quiet and very present with our present, to be here now, to see what comes up, because this is really trying to individually and collectively push us to our future. And again, wherever this is hitting in your chart could portend to a great ending or a great beginning happening in your life. All right, take care.
Hey, thank you for listening to today's Astro Weather with me. I'm Sydney. As a reminder, I'm always open to seeing both new and my beloved returning clients. My website is ddAstrology.com. That is D as in dog, astrology.com to check me out, and just click the email buttons in order to schedule with me. If you're into a more conversational feel with your podcast and content, I have a podcast called BS Astrology with my fellow Mercurial Mommy Bender, and we put out episodes every Sunday for the week. Just search BS Astrology on YouTube or wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts, including Spotify, Audible, and more. Have a good day.